I've pressed that live button again, so I hope we're live. We will find out very, very shortly. I'm going to assume we are. So hi everyone, welcome back to second stream of the morning in our sort of countdown to the end of the Dayagar campaign. I will be firing up links to it everywhere if for some reason you've found your way here but aren't aware of it. We've done our best to spam everywhere we possibly can for the last goodness knows how many weeks. But we've got a guest on now, Robin, who painted the box art that you can see on the screen. So the second box art for Lael the Executioner. And as I said in the previous stream, really, really keen to have Robin and then Jamie on later, because these guys are relatively early on in their larger scale miniatures painting journeys, as it were. And I know a lot of you have sort of mentioned the intimidation factor, or how exactly do you transition from one to the other. And I thought rather than listening to me and Andy blabber on about it and get you to buy our models, I thought we'd get some guys on there who perhaps can give you some relevant tips and feedback and whatnot. So as with all the other streams, if you've got any questions, please stick them in the chat. We will do our very best to keep our eyes on the chat and see what's going on with that. But I think we'll just get straight into it, because I want to keep this around 30, 40 minutes or so. We'll see how it goes. So firstly, hi, Robin.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you.
This is good fun. We're really enjoying these. So I'm sure it won't be the last time we have a good natter with you about painting miniatures. And in case anybody is thinking, my goodness, that mustache is quite something, we completely agree. I might be basing one of the dwarf miniatures for the next range on that.
That's exactly what I had in mind.
I mean, I'd had a few people saying, "Oh, you should make Cornish dwarves," but now I'm wondering about maybe we need to move further north. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
We will see. So, mate. So I guess let's fire through some questions I've got to get the conversation going. I'm going to move some slides so we can have a look at some of your non-large scale stuff first. You've obviously done a lot of display level, competition level models to a 28-32 mil model. What got you into that display painting, that sort of individual competition level stuff?
I think recently it's where I'm living currently. Obviously, I've moved away from my home village, so really it was through wanting something to do, because I wasn't gaming much at the time. I'd left my previous gaming club, things like that. So it's just something that I really focused on, just because I had so much more time for the hobby, being in a new area, getting to know, my local store, things like that, really. But I mean, it's just grown and grown really over the last few years. I've enjoyed a bit of success recently, and I think that's just added to the desire to just want to keep doing it really. Mm-hmm. And it obviously is something I do enjoy a lot. So that's its own reward really.
Yeah, and you are, as you just mentioned there, you do like your gaming as well, don't you? So you do paint for gaming.
Yeah, I'm working on that at the moment on my Death Guard for 40k. So. Yeah, I thought we're in lockdown again, so I'm trying to use the time just to get as much done as I can.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, the chat saying that mustache is also award-winning, which should be correct.
Yeah.
It should.
I'll take that.
So,
as long as it's gold.
How long have you been display painting or painting for display at 32 mil sort of scale?
Probably about 6 years, something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I started entering Golden Demon. I mean, that's really other than Iron Skull, that's the only competition I'd entered. So I think the first serious attempt I made was probably about 2014, something like that. Mm-hmm. But, it was a bit of an eye-opener because, when you do start to take it seriously, you realise also that, you got to look at your work quite honestly and realise there's always a long way to go. There's so many great painters out there. So it's great from that respect, obviously, to come away with having seen all these great pieces of work, as well, that gives you a measure of your own standard as well, I think.
Yeah, I definitely like one of the big things I noticed was just the difference in seeing the miniatures. It's sort of in the flesh, as it were, at shows compared to seeing them on Instagram or whatever. You really can appreciate the work that's gone into them.
Yeah.
I think it's something you just don't see on camera necessarily.
Yeah, I have that conversation with my dad all the time because he's quite interested in what I'm doing, and I can never tell him it's so much different when you see them up close and for real. You just realise how amazing some of these guys are that producing these things.
Yeah, big time. So what was the reason for the and the Lael, the executioner model, I'll pop up on screen in a sec, is actually your first large scale model, right? Your first.
It is, yeah.
Model.
Yeah.
So what was the reason for the jump? What was the push? What was the desire? Where did it come from?
I mean, obviously, having been invited to paint the model, I was really impressed as soon as I saw it. I mean, I do have a few large scale figures in my collection, which I've just not got around to painting, but I mean, this one's fantastic. Really enjoyed doing it. I think I'm really pleased I've done it, to be quite honest, because it's been a good push to get into it. And obviously, once I started working on it, realised that I don't think there is any need to be intimidated by him, because I think you should just enjoy, have fun painting it as well. Anyway, so don't let it be too scared of making a start on it, really.
No, that's good, man. I think that's definitely something we want to encourage people with. And I think, to be fair, for your first larger scale model, I mean, she's quite something. Like that miniature's got quite a lot going on.
Yeah. The scales were certainly very. That was the most time-consuming element, I think. But I'm really so pleased with how it's come out. But I loved the painting. It was great. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's fair to say you're a very technical painter. You emulate or improve upon, or however you want to phrase it. But that heavy metal style of painting, I think, is fairly fair to say is an inspiration to you.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because obviously 99% of what I painted is has been Games Workshop. I did when I was younger. I was very much into the Napoleonic era, so I did a lot of 120mm figures then, but nothing to this standard. But I was mad into the Sharp novels when I was younger, so that was a big influence.
I started rewatching that at the start of lockdown, actually, so I was enjoying them. Old Scene Bean.
That's the one.
But yeah, I love a bit of that. But how did you, with your approach to painting being, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, so that's why I'm trying to be careful. With your approach to painting being quite technical, being quite deliberate, being quite accurate, painting those details in, right? How was that on the larger model? Is it, as you said, was it as simple as, okay, this is just going to take me more time? So the same as painting a large Warhammer figure would simply take you more time than painting a small infantry Warhammer figure? Or did you find that actually, because it wasn't simply a bigger model size-wise, it was a bigger model scale-wise, did you find there were certain things you started to change a little bit in your approach? I mean, one for me is looking at is her tabard, her robes, whatever you want to call them, that amazing snakeskin pattern that you've put on there. I mean, that would be very, very difficult to do in that style on a 32mm model.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, there was there's so much space to do it, as you say on there. It's a big miniature, so there's plenty of room to get the effect. But I mean, each individual scale was relatively relatively small. So it was, I think, quite similar size details. You know, if you take each scale individually, so it was only the same as working on a Games Workshop piece, I think. So yeah, I think that all the blends and things were, you know, it was quite simple to do, just being used to the Games Workshop scale. Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah.
And because you know, it was a larger model as well, obviously you had to make sure, you know, your blends were smoother, because obviously the detail's bigger, isn't it? So you got more area. You know, I was just trying to get those transitions and things as smooth as I could.
And that's interesting, because we had that conversation on the stream before this one. Somebody asking about that smoothness on the larger scale models, and you know, as I said, I think your style is smooth blends. You know, we were talking about blends don't necessarily have to be smooth by any means, but I think when you commit to them being smooth, as you say, on a large scale thing like this, there's a lot of work. And this is all brushwork, correct?
Base coated. The cloak was base coated with an airbrush, but everything else just by brush. But the cloak, for instance, you know, I really enjoy painting texture. So you know, I did quite a lot of textural work, stippling and scratches, things like that on the highlights of the cloak. And there's not much work in the shadows, because I was trying to go, you know, for sort of zenithal highlighting on there. And obviously the deeper shadows just have quite a lot of impact. I think really pleased with how that's come out. Just looking at that, it's
the back's phenomenal. Yeah,
it's very cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one of those great things of, like, 99% of people who look at that model will probably never see the back of that. And it should, that Robin paints the backs of them, just so you know. All right, he's not a classic box artist, you know.
Who trying to dig here?
most people.
We've shown the back of Robin's, not mine.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's another point, and you know, obviously that's what I'm used to doing with the display painting. That's not an approach I generally take, so it's something a bit alien to me, as it were, you know. And as you say, with Andy's pose on that dramatic angle you've got, you know, with the you know, the highlighting and those. So, you know, it's really interesting difference between the two. Yeah, I really enjoyed the cape. I'm really happy with how that came out. But
it makes the model, really, doesn't it? So
fantastic.
Especially on the back, it's pretty much all you see. So I'm just looking at it now on screen, and it's just amazing. The color and the texture and the light and the shadows. It's just it's crazy. Amazing sculpt and the paint to match it, I think.
Yeah.
I think the way the cloak attaches them is essentially just one massive piece. When we had Max, the concept artist, on earlier in the week chatting, he was saying how one of the things with this character, the sketch he did, was this similar to a forced perspective architects would put on buildings. So by making her face really quite small and slightly tapering her from top to bottom, you gave her this strange otherworldly alien, you know, not human physique. You know, all her proportions weren't quite what we would assume. And I think when the cloak's not on her, that's really obvious, because she is this sort of triangle, isn't she? Yeah. And then you add the cloak on, and you still got the effect of that forced perspective on her, but all of a sudden she just becomes this huge thing, this complete piece. Which I think, I think the cloak is, again, me and Andy have mentioned it a few times. It was there in the sketch. We weren't quite sure what the sculptors would do with it, and then we came back one morning to the updates, and boom! Oh my goodness, there's this. You know, I think the first reaction probably was, "Oh my god, how much is this going to cost to cast because of that resin?" But also, you know, that's it's a very, very cool interpretation. And again, Max was saying, the cloak doesn't necessarily need to be fully corporeal, or, you know, it could be, is it smoke turning into a skin? Is it actually the hide off a dragon or a snake or whatever? And I think that's going to be quite fun to see how different people paint it, at how they interpret.
Yeah, definitely. It was really quite straightforward to work on as well, actually. Again, going back to the scale of it and being perhaps intimidated by it, but I was amazed. I really enjoyed it. It was quite straightforward, and once I'd base coated the whole thing, I just glued it on, worked on it, attached to the torso, which obviously helps you with the highlighting and things, because you've got the model there built in front of you. But it's I'm really happy with it.
It's come out great. Got a question from the chat saying, what do you think is you also you specifically, Robert, is your greatest challenge in painting, and how do you mitigate this? How do you change your mindset to get through it, to not let that challenge stop you progressing?
I'm fairly single-minded, so if I start something, I mean, generally I've only got one project on the go, and obviously, it's something that I'm enjoying working on. I think that has got to carry you through, just how much you are enjoying the piece, because that'll really help you focus on it, I think, and be determined to get, everything painted as well as you can, really. I think that's one key.
So I think it's fair to say, like we perhaps tease you occasionally about being very methodical and taking your time with a paint. Right?
We're just jealous.
Now, is that a challenge, or do you just not see that as you said, because you've got that single sort of minded focus on it, and you're this all-consuming project? That hobby time is hobby time, right? If it's painting one model, it's painting one model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. To be honest, it's as I say, I've got an endless pile of things I want to be painting, but once I've started something, generally that's all I'll work on. So, and I think that's important, not to get too distracted by other things, because you don't end up finishing things, do you? We've all been there. If you end up with too much work in progress on the go, and I think that's when you step away from a project for too long as well. Obviously, you might have forgotten what colours you used, what recipes, things like that. So I just think it's important to focus on one thing at a time, really, to some degree.
I'm definitely changing more towards that, and I've actually been enjoying my hobby more when I've had fewer projects, and it's just nice, like having two at a max. So I've got two projects at the moment, which is the hunter and the lion. But the hunter's like base done, wolf done. I haven't actually started her figure, and I'll probably finish the lion. But I really changed probably in the last year to doing one project at a time, and I definitely prefer that, to get really involved in that one project and just see it through. And if you need a little break, like do a quick gaming model maybe, but I've changed a lot in my how many projects I have on the go. And I agree with you that I find it stressful actually having loads of projects. So
yeah, I think it's just all.
Sorry, Robin, go on. But
sorry, no, I was just going to say I'd probably repeating myself, but it's just all too easy to get overwhelmed, I think, by your desire to want to paint everything at once. Because I'm I think we're all the same.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So what I was going to ask you is, do you think some of that being overwhelmed by too many projects on the go, or too many miniatures on the go, do you think a lot of that comes from the fact that so many hobbyists nowadays are often coming via Games Workshop and therefore via army painting? Well, not say army painting, but bit of painting collections, as opposed to thinking of painting as a period of time you're going to spend painting something, and actually that can just be one model.
Yeah, you could be right. I mean, if people want to make the step from, as you say, army painting to competition painting, obviously it is a different discipline, isn't it? You do need to be concentrating on one thing, and this isn't going to happen overnight. You can't expect to knock 10 models out in a week or whatever. I mean, to a competition standard. So yeah, I think it's all about changing your perspective on how you're going to operate, basically. Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. So let's dive into that a little bit more. So thinking of saying, you need to change your perspective of it. How do you keep the little positive feedback loop things going. You know, if I'm painting a squad of infantry, you know, if in a painting session I can get, I don't know, all the armor done on that squad, then at the end of that session, although the model's nowhere near complete, I've found a stop point. I'm pleased, it's progress, you know, a little positive click, right, let's keep going, look forward to the next session.
Yeah.
How do you approach it? Is it just a case of you work on one part of the model at a time to completion, or is it just essentially knuckling down and just accepting it's going to take you longer to get to certain points?
I don't know. I don't really think like that. I think it's just quite organic, really. I just, you know, I might decide just to work on, you know, say the armor, or then a leather tabard or something on the particular day. What I do like to do is, you know, if I paint every single day, but I, you know, even if it's only for half an hour, just try and do the tiniest detail. You know, when you put your brush down and you know, you go to bed or whatever. I like to finish the day on having at least achieved one little element of, you know, what I'm working on.
I agree on that. It really helps, doesn't it? Like just one little win, and even if it's one detail, it's kind of like instead of painting a squad, you do a detail. So, like when I finished the lion sword last week, that was awesome. I just did one sword, but I felt so like happy and excited to do the rest of the model because I kind of done one detail that I was really happy with. And that's the difference, right?
Within that detail, Andy, like how many sessions are you looking at for something like that? Because with that sword, you know, where's that sense of completion or enthusiasm or whatever coming from when perhaps the end of one hobby session you've only got a half painted sword?
I guess like I did that in one and then changed a couple bits in like half hour, but I pretty much did that in a one-er. But I guess if you have a vision and you're building up layers, like if you're just successful in whatever bit you've got to, then I guess you get the win, right? Like if you can see where you're heading with it, like, oh yeah, I've got a nice smooth start, that's wicked, I can't wait to finish that tomorrow. I guess that's it. But the sword, I did it in an evening and then just changed a couple bits sort of when I'd reflected on it the next day. But I think that's the only difference when you're painting a single model, and I'm sure Robin will agree, is that you get those wins on just doing a part really well, and that actually spurs you on for the rest of the model. And I was thinking, actually, looking at the Robin's layout, that the tip of the spear is similar to how he's done the White Scar character, and actually the Games Workshop White Scar character's sword's probably bigger. So there's no difference between painting that and then the non G-dub thing, really.
No.
So that's kind of cool, I thought.
Yeah, I think a lot of the details are comparable, really. You know, the face, for instance, is pretty similar in size, isn't it? Some of the Primark models, and and with the cape, as going back to the cape again, it was quite easy to break it down into, because obviously I didn't do that in one session, but it's easy to break it down into small quarters, things like that. You know, see, I just worked, say, the tip that's billowing up into the air nearest the plume on the spear, and where there's that round, you know, the circular highlight there. So I just work on small sections at a time in that way, and that just helps to break the size of it down as well, you know. And it's because obviously that's one thing I would say, you know, okay, so tonight I'm going to get that portion finished, and then, you know, the next day will be another small area. And
then you get a vision, then, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. And you know, you can see the finished product building up, and again, it's just a little target for the day, and you can then, you know, start again the next day on another area. So yeah.
So
that's how I try to break it down.
To something Andy mentioned a second ago there. Sorry if I'm talking over you a tiny bit, guys. There's a tiny bit of a delay. When you're working on these larger models, so Andy said with the sword, then you know, he did the majority of it, and then he went back and tweaked it. Now I find if I'm working on a 32mm model, very often if I do something on it I don't like, I will scrap the model.
Right.
It's getting either sprayed over and repainted, or worst comes to worst, stripped and repainted. When you're painting on the larger models, is there more back and forth before, oh my goodness, it's a disaster? You know, do you have that opportunity to rework parts without having to give up on the whole project, as it were?
Yeah, I thankfully I've never really had that many issues in that way. I think as also, you know, I mean, I do work with a lot of glazes and things, you know, fairly thin layers. So, you know, provided you haven't lost the detail with real thick coats of paint, things like that, you know, I think it's quite easy to correct it, because you know, as long as your subsequent layers, you know, again, keep them nice and thin, consistent, you're not losing that detail, and you can, you know, I can generally always pull it back. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting.
That's quite fun with doing the texture, really, because it's obviously you're trying to create a natural finish, you know, rather than a smooth blend on a piece of armor plate, say. So, you know, you can make mistakes, but correct it, you know, with more textural damage or things like that, you know. So it's
more information, isn't it? Just building that and stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, that's and that's a fun way to do it, really. I mean, you can do that on armor, obviously, can't you? If you know, creating battle damage, because I've done that on the Calcius figure. That's really how I painted the armor, was with, you know, with lots of scratches, essentially, or sideward and, you know, vertical brush strokes, things like that.
Yeah, like a pointy stroke, really, isn't it, rather than a smooth.
Yeah. So yeah, thankfully it's not been. I've not really had too many disastrous moments, but
yeah. So a lot of what I'm picking up from this, Robin, is basically be as focused as you are and be as accurate as you are, and don't muck up like you do. And that means you'll paint fantastic looking models. So
Robin's one of those guys
that's completely blown the intimidation factor for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it sounds well, it's easy to say it, but you just got to be patient, haven't you? You know, I think if you do make a mistake, you just got to accept it and you know, try to correct it, like I say, because it's the only way you're gonna, you know, you'll get it right eventually, by sticking with it and being patient.
Determination.
That's exactly it. I think you know, just being a bit silly then, but the two things you said that I think are massively relevant to these painting these larger models, things like that, is patience, but also that you saying you're trying to get paint on every day, even if it's 30 minutes, you're trying to get some paint on. You know, so you're chipping away at it. You know, it's fresh in your mind. You're always thinking about something new. You're not sat stewing about the last paint session for a week before you can get back to it. You know, I think and that's really, really cool.
And you know, obviously I was really enjoying painting it. It was great, and I mean, one of the most satisfying things, and it was all the little gold medallions on her arms, and, you know, the area around the cloak around her neck, because they are tiny, those things, but, you know, it's they look so great on there because they really pop as well. But yeah.
What was your inspiration for the color scheme?
With the snake skin on the cloak there, that was obviously a real life reference. I did some research into, you know, obviously real snakes and things, and that was so eye catching that, you know, it's just so wild that there are creatures out there, you know, that, you know, actually have this kind of camouflage, if you will, or a deterrent more, isn't it, with snakes, I suppose, for predators and things. But so yeah, and with the cloak, I just wanted something obviously dark to frame her body, but again, going what you said earlier about, you know, what is the cloak? It could be smoke or a dragon's hide, which the latter is exactly what I had in mind. So, you know, I was just thinking of things, you know, from reading fantasy novels when I was a kid, you know. So obviously that what I saw as a archetypal sort of dragon skin color, really, you know. That's what I wanted to try and incorporate into it, really.
Yeah, I was just I banged on about it loads, and I'm going to do it again. I just love how different the box arts have been coming back from people.
Yeah.
And I what was I expecting? A purple Hiergar bust of the Woodsman? No, but I wasn't like massively surprised.
Only if I did it.
It's like that's the thing, right? I think the Warcraft elves are that
Yeah.
kind of, right? So I'd seen that sort of thing, but I had absolutely no preconceptions of what this model was going to look like. Your version nor Andy's. I mean, I had an inkling that there might be some purple on Andy's, but other than that, it was so nice when the photos came in and they were so different to each other.
Yeah.
It really, as I said, this model, I think for me and Andy's been the sort of, it probably is our favorite from the whole process to the end result.
All in all, probably.
Or like if you take everything and for many reasons. But I do, I just love what you've done on it. I just think it's super cool.
Yes.
We are getting close to half hour now, so I thought I'd just ask a couple more questions before we buzz off again, and we'll start a new stream, guys. So I know a few of you didn't get the notifications for this stream, but we're going to start a new stream around 22 or 1:45, so at 11:40, 11:45, so 10 to 15 minutes time, which will have Jamie on, and we'll be talking about similar things that we've spoken to Robin about, but for the Woodsman model that he painted. But I just want to fire a couple more questions at Robin, because we're definitely going to have you back on to chat about painting. I think it's really interesting to get different painters' perspectives on the same projects. I think it is anyway. So that's what we're going to do. So there. So we've got Mike saying the cloak looks so intimidating. I think obviously he means the mustache. And Jamie George also saying that the Tash and glasses are another level, not to take away from how well painted this model is. So let's do a couple of little quick ones. You got two paints that you can't, you're always going to have. They're never going to take out of production. They're always there. They're a backup. You can't paint without them. What are you having?
Oh, nice.
Oof. Gordon Bennett.
Have two. That wasn't horrible.
I'm just going to have to hang on. I'm going to need to have a look at my paint racks.
Oh,
I can only imagine Robin's paint racks being just so beautifully organised.
He's only got a small desk here, so he's always neat and tidy.
I could. It's not very large, my area really, but that's it. So I do struggle for space, to be honest. But
that can be quite nice, though, right? That can focus you.
Yeah, it's clean. I had to tidy it up this morning. It was all right, pigsty, before he came.
That's right. I just stick the blur on, mate.
I'm a bit of a techno dinosaur. I don't know how to do all that. But no, I think currently model colour. Olive green is a big favourite at the moment. That's golden olive. Sorry, that's what I'm using on the desk at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, it can't be green, can it? I was going to say another green then.
You love Doomball Brown. You love that.
I do. Actually, I do use that a lot. Yeah.
And what? Go on then. So explain. What's the reason for that?
Well, it's because it has a orangish hue, doesn't it? A reddish tone. So I use that a lot for my shading in greens.
Right.
So and obviously,
I suppose with all the Nurgle stuff you've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Get that, which I presumably you're quite excited about. Maybe what we're seeing from GW later today.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll give you some new models and not just a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems to have been the.
Yeah.
Who wants books?
Give us more toys.
Yeah, I've just got I've just been working on my army, but I've got a tank I've nearly finished today, which should get finished today. So hopefully,
lovely. So that was going to be my final question for you, Bub. Was what's up next? What are you working on next that you?
Yeah, unfortunately, with no competitions on the horizon, as I said, I've been focusing on my army painting because it's something I keep getting teased about. Not actually getting armies painted. So I'm working hard on that at the moment. But
I'm the worst for the teasing, aren't I? As well. I'm like, how's your army?
Yeah, my 7 models. Yeah, yeah. I think about. Yeah, I've done 9 Marines and 1 Terminator now. They're on the shelf.
Love it. You're quicker than Rich.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he keeps changing his mind, doesn't he? That's the problem.
Right, lovely. So I'm going to wrap this one up here, but just so we can keep vaguely on track with it all. But thanks ever so much for coming on, mate, and thanks ever so much for that the paint job. You know, we're over the moon with it, and I'm sure people are really going to enjoy having a chance to look at that. And as soon as we can be at shows, guys, whether that's conventions or competitions or whatever, you know, we're going to be bringing these models with us for you to see and hold in your hand and have a look at and all the rest of it as much as possible. So you can see that work that you just can't capture on screen. You'll get a look at. One quick question, haven't answered just yet, but I will answer more in the next stream from Frosty Worldwide. Will Dairguard be available for sale after the Kickstarter? Yes, it will, but there won't be as many parts on some of the models, and obviously the cost is going to be higher than it is for the Kickstarter. But I'll talk a little bit about that in the next one and stuff. So yeah, you got anything you want to check with Robin, Andy, or are we good to go?
I was going to say, what Underworld's warband are you painting next? That was my final question.
Yeah,
are you going to do the Sinesh or are you going to do the High Elves from Diagasm?
I think the High Elves would be before the Slanesh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good to know.
We'll have to wait and see. I've got about 8 warbands behind me that need doing as well. So yeah.
Oh, and sorry, one more quick question coming from Raceburn. Does that mustache have an OnlyFans account?
An OnlyFans account?
Which I doubt Robin knows about. Don't tease Robin in his lack of knowledge of current media and
Henry, you can have him as a guest, I think, on yours.
Yeah, I will.
You?
I will.
Like,
I'll bring in my painting after dark. Chat. We'll bring you on. Right, lovely. Thanks again, Robin, and thanks, guys, in the chat for firing those questions and just watching and supporting it all. We'll be back in about 10 minutes on a new stream. So check on the main page on YouTube and you'll get on the new stream. We'll have Jamie talking about his next model, and we'll talk a little bit about the end of the project, what's coming next, and things like that. So we will see you all very soon.
Cheers, Robin.
Cheerio. Thank you very much.
See you soon.
Bye now.